Happy Black Girl Freedom Week. Thank you for joining us on our 6th day. My name is Joanne N. Smith. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a co-founder of the Black Girl Freedom Fund and the founder of Girls for Gender Equity, an 18-year-old national organization that builds the political power of Black femmes, non-binary, and gender-expansive youth of color. Our work spans from ending intimate partner and systemic violence to leading national strategies such as the National Agenda for Black Girls. You'll hear more about that today from the esteemed steering committee members, Ama, Logan, and Umu. I'm here to give a little background on it. The National Agenda for Black Girls grew out of a commitment to shift the conversation among candidates running for president to center cis and trans Black girls explicitly and address their legislative and resource allocation needs. Now, we know we can't legislate our way to freedom, and we know we must hold the government accountable. Black girls become Black women and adults, and Black women are the heart of the progressive electorate who we are consistently thanking for saving our democracy. The government can no longer ignore the issues faced by Black girls and youth. With this vision, we launched a national agenda for Black girls in 2019, steered by a team of 20 Black youth, which in 2021 has grown to 55. If you're a Black youth and interested in getting involved, please connect, and is endorsed by 65 organizations serving Black women and girls across the United States. Since its inception, GGE has virtually engaged the steering committee in political education, analysis, storytelling, to continue to support their leadership so that they can drive this work. Black girls, non-binary, and gender non-conforming youth need to be nurtured, protected, and most importantly, they need to be front and center in the new Biden-Harris administration. Let this administration's budget and policy priorities reflect the futures we want to build for our youth. The 6 policy priorities include expanding education justice and opportunity, healing, well-being, and reproductive justice, immigration and racial justice. Yes, immigration is a racial justice issue. Expanding democracy for young people, ending gender-based violence while building a culture of consent. And number 6, passing a Black Girls Bill of Rights as a global cultural and narrative shift needed to change the ways Black girls are treated, discussed, invested in, and understood as experts of their experiences and experts in their solutions and leadership. We'll share the policy memo in the chat and ask that you visit our site so that you have a fuller view of this critical and urgent work. Stay with us as I pass the mic to the brilliant Damala Denny, organizing manager at Girls for Gender Equity. And thank you for investing in Black futures now by joining the Black Girl Movement. Damala?
Thank you so much, Joanne. I appreciate all the hard work that you've done thus far with Girls for Gender Equity. Again, my name is Damala. My pronouns are she and her. And today we're going to talk to you mostly about 2 of our policy priorities: ending gender-based violence while building cultures of consent, and expanding education opportunities and justice. I'm going to pass to some of my co-facilitators here today to introduce themselves and talk a little bit more about why they decided to join National Agenda for Black Girls. Uma?
Hi, everyone. My name is Umu. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I joined National Agenda for Black Girls to center the needs of Black girls. I will pass it along to Ama.
Hi, my name is Amma. My pronouns are she, her, they. I joined because I really enjoyed the work that they do, and I was very inspired, and I knew that they impact my life, so I feel I can impact other Black girls' lives through this work. So I'm going to pass it to Logan.
Hey y'all, my name is Logan. My pronouns are they, them. And I joined the steering committee because as a young Black, trans, and non-binary person, oftentimes we're left out of very critical conversations. So it felt like a very good opportunity for me to be able to make sure that we're fully, or at least as represented as we can be.
Thanks so much, y'all, and so happy that you could be here to have this important conversation. Let's start with you, Umu, and talk a little bit more about your experiences and how you've experienced being a Black girl.
Again, hi, I'm Umu. My name is Umu, and today I want to highlight the misrepresentation and hypersexualization of Black girls as a whole. Chloe Bailey, a singer from the R&B duo Chloe x Haley, posted a video of her being comfortable in her own skin, dancing and embracing her sexuality, and was back harassed to the point she was in tears. Chloe expressing and owning her identity was portrayed as bad. The good girl, bad girl balancing act has plagued Black girls forever. Society standards towards Black and brown girls have deeply ingrained expectations of Black girls. These expectations are influenced by racism and patriarchy, which often mischaracterize young Black girls. According to Dr. Monique Morris, young Black girls According to Dr. Monique Morris, the portrayal of Black women and girls are sexually promiscuous. In other words, Jezebels. This continued throughout the 20th century and is prominent today. Black girls have continuously been stripped of their ability to be who they are unapologetically. This isn't just happening in media. It's happening everywhere. Black girls in schools, communities, etc. During the summer of my sophomore year in high school, I went to school with fashionable jeans that represented my identity. And as soon as I walked through the door, I was forcibly pushed into the main office. The school administration went to the storage room and found a blue and purple cardboard paper, and deeply offended me when they started taping the blue and purple cardboard paper on every part of my body, claiming it was a distraction to the learning environment. I resisted and was suspended. My school made me choose between the two most important things to me, my identity and my education. Because I chose my identity, I was punished because of the same over-sexualization that Chloe Bailey endured. Now, what are your thoughts on that?
Go for it, Umu.
So yeah, thank you, Umo. I completely agree. And I've had a very similar experience to you where going to school, I have a uniform, and any type of outside or whatever they deem is not appropriate, even if I am wearing the uniform, I'm instantly policed and I have to make the decision, do I want to be, or do I want to identify as a Black girl and stand in my Black girlhood, or do I want to have an education that day? And that is something that I face and definitely resonate with Chloe about, because I was so distraught and broken when I saw that her busted challenge, at first it was getting all this love and I was like, yeah, she's doing her thing. And then I realized very shortly she was brought to tears because she was being tore down for who she was as a Black girl, a Black woman. That's something that I definitely feel every day, just throughout my everyday life.
I think that for me, just what really stands out is just the lack of ownership that people feel that we should have of our own bodies. People who think that they can just put their hands on our bodies, people who think that they can essentially just kind of mold our bodies to shape whatever they envision us to be, whether that is the stereotype of the Jezebel or the mammy or whatever, just to serve their own needs, which goes back into what you were saying, Umu, about like the intersections of like race and sexism and gender and how it all intersects. So that's just kind of what came up for me. And even when I was in high school, when my high school decided to do a uniform mandate, even looking at how expensive these uniforms are. These uniforms are not cost effective. And if you have multiple siblings and you're a working class family, how are you supposed to be able to afford all of these different pairs of uniforms to last the entire week? So not only does it go into like body autonomy and people keeping their hands off of our bodies, but there's also like a very specific way that this impacts poor and working class folks as well.
Thanks so much for making that connection, Logan, and thanks, Amma, for sharing all that you did about your own experiences. Definitely hate to see Black girls policed, especially when they're in schools because they spend most of their time there. and should be free to be who they want to be. And I did want to take this opportunity to give a little more context for our policy ending gender-based violence while building cultures of consent. That agenda calls for comprehensive sex ed, covering consent and healthy relationships, and inclusive of LGBTQIA plus experiences, because that's something that's often missing from sex education in schools. We're also calling for a federal survivors fund to provide access to housing, transportation, mental health care, and other emotional, physical, and psychological needs of people who experience trauma. The entire spectrum of gender-based violence needs to be addressed right now because Black girls are experiencing these things all too often. I'm going to pass to Logan to talk more about this and share about their organizing in Florida on behalf of Black girls. Go for it, Logan.
Thanks, Damala. Yeah, so about a week or two ago, me and my home organization, Soul Sisters Leadership Collective and the Black Girls Matter Miami Coalition, we ended up doing a rapid response to two very unfortunate viral things that went viral on TikTok and on Instagram. In Lake County, there was a girl who was assaulted by a school resource officer. She was body slammed, she went unconscious, and she was handcuffed. And there was another young Black girl in Osceola County who, or maybe I'm getting the two mixed up, but they're very similar. One girl was body slammed, another girl was tasered. And the common thread here is folks still continuing to put their hands on our bodies. So going back to talking about like body autonomy. So we were there for a whole week. We did a lot of on the ground work. We built really intentional relationships. And what we found out was there's a very clear, there's very clear pressure that's being put on the students, especially the girls who experience this assault on their bodies. There's a lot of pressure on them to be respectful, to lean into respectability politics, very much like, well, if someone tells you to do something, then you need to do it. And it's like, actually, we're human, we make mistakes. And they're literally in high school. They're literally students, they're literally children, and children mess up. Children make mistakes, but that doesn't mean that they deserve to be body slammed. That doesn't mean that they deserve to be tased. That doesn't mean that they deserve to be publicly embarrassed on the internet, because we know that once something hits the internet, it lives there forever. And even like taking a very close look at the SROs, right? Just for some context, SRO means school resource officer. So in the state of Florida, there has to be at least one school resource officer in every public school because of what happened at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas about 2 years ago. And what we found out when we went there is that these SROs receive anywhere between approximately 40 hours of training before they're kind of like assigned to a school. That means that when something happens, if the SRO gets involved, the principal and the school staff do not have any type of say in what happens once they get involved. So essentially what you're doing is you're introducing a wild card into the schools that you cannot hold accountable in a way that makes sense, in a way that is restorative. And they just kind of do what they do. They're not supposed to be there for disciplinary actions. They're supposed to be there based on the mandate. They're supposed to be there to handle anything that could be breaking the law. So we see this time and time again. We've seen it in New York City. We've seen it in Miami. We're seeing it across the country where Black girls are being brutalized and assaulted by school resource officers. And what we really need to just think about is, and make space for, is looking at, if SROs are not working, if they're harming and abusing the students at the schools, what else can we do to handle conflict? Is it restorative justice? Is it restorative circles? Is it maybe a circle of elders that step in to handle something when there is a conflict at a school? So that's kind of like the things that we were up to for about a week when we were in Central Florida, and also want to open it up to Umu and Ama just around like y'all's experience with school resource officers and like discipline in schools.
So I would like to add on to what you're saying. So I remember during high school, I got into a physical altercation with another girl, and the way I was handled, I feel like Black girls need to be handled with care, because like I was tackled, and I feel like that just wasn't the way to go or to handle me. So I just wanted to say that. And also thank you for sharing. You hit all the points. Schools really need to work on restorative justice, especially specifically when it comes to girls of color.
Definitely. I agree with Umu. One of your points that you made, Logan, was that we are children, we're in high school. I'm a high school student, and something that I realized that I had to realize like very early on is that as Black girls, we aren't allowed to make those mistakes. Like we automatically are trained, and like when you see us, we are taught you have to know better. No matter what age you are, you have to know better. And everyone treats us, no matter like if we are those girls, no, you knew better. You instantly knew better. You knew exactly what you were doing, so we're going to treat you accordingly. And like this harshness and this brutality that comes with being a Black girl, I feel like I've definitely faced like being in Detroit and being like my school system, the SROs there. No, I don't think they should be in our schools. I don't think they should be in our schools at all, because they don't know how to handle Black girls, because they instantly treat us with brutality and force. They instantly see, oh, that's a threat. Like we are supposed to be treated with care, but they don't have the capability or the capacity to treat us with care. So they shouldn't be in our facilities or in our schools. And I feel like they are making this space that's supposed to be a safe space very just a toxic environment. And we fear going to school because this policing of our bodies. And then, like if you say something or you make any little mistake, you have to know better or you're going to be punished in the most severe punishment possible.
Thank you all for sharing your own experiences in schools. I think that it's really important to listen to Black girls, which is why GGE has a national agenda for Black girls. And to believe them and to put action behind all the things that they need and deserve. So thank you for really sharing your stories. Black girls in this country make up 14% of students, but they're more than double that amount for suspensions and expulsions at 33.2%. Our national agenda recommends the elimination of truancy laws and the end to suspensions and expulsions for students K through 12, because Black girls and gender expansive youth are most harshly affected by them. We uplift the Ending School Pushout Act, sponsored by Representative Ayanna Pressley, which requires the Department of Education to award grants to local education agencies and nonprofits to reduce suspensions and expulsions of students, and establishes a task force to end school push-out. We also are a champion of the Police Free Schools movement. Big shout outs to the schools in LA for getting that passed, and hopefully in New York and in Florida and in Detroit, we're next. And I'll pass to Ama to talk a little bit more about that and what it's been like to learn virtually throughout this pandemic.
Thank you. So throughout the pandemic, virtually, what it's been like to live and go to school in Detroit as a Black girl, it has been very hard. I think that even though we as Black girls, we define ourselves and we set the standard and we can say what we want as Black girls, it is ignored. Like our definition for ourselves, especially during this time, we can set that precedent, but it's almost like people don't trust what we say about ourselves. And I say that because as I've organized around what virtual learning should look like for my school district, and how virtual learning should prioritize its Black and Brown students, because going back in the building is not the solution. Going back in the building still brings that same trauma because you haven't solved any of it. It's just now because our district is under-resourced and we never prepared to be virtual, you think that going back in the building will solve all our problems. And with organizing around virtual learning and saying that we need a curriculum that prioritizes our stories and that can't erase ourselves, we need for you all to say that having a camera on because you can police our bodies in our own homes, saying having a camera on is unnecessary. It is not necessary to conduct the educational environment. It's not necessary to learn and things around that. And just saying like the SAT should be abolished forever, continuing through 2021, 2022 because this is not something that's attainable for us. Our like in Detroit during the pandemic, our SAT like centers were closed down because the pandemic. And in order for me to take the SAT or ACT, I would have to drive to Flint or I would have to drive out into the suburbs, which is something that isn't something that is in my capacity. I'm not able to do that during the pandemic. And as we organize around like what Black girls need during this virtual environment and going forward, and defining like this is a necessity for us to thrive and not only survive, people I feel are ignoring that and they're not valuing that when we as Black girls define our very authentically saying this is what we need. Some people, especially in my city, are saying, well, we feel like we can do without that, or I don't trust exactly, or I feel like I know better. I know you better. I know as someone who isn't a Black girl, I know what you need. So take what I'm giving you. And we have to be grateful for what you give us, even if it isn't what we need or what we desire. So I'd like to open it up to the floor and see what you all think.
You hit every point. That's all I really could say.
I think that yes, you hit every point. And I also think that what folks really need to do is like lean into like kindness and grace. We're talking about how we're human beings, that people need to start seeing Black girls and gender expansive youth as human beings. It starts with that. It starts with whatever you need to work on internally, whether working on your internalized racism. Like we need you to see us as human beings who are deserving of care, who are sacred, who deserve love, and who essentially just make mistakes. Like to be able to expect to police someone from their own home via Zoom with the camera on, that's absolutely ridiculous. And we've seen instances where folks can't have their video camera on for various reasons because we honestly don't know what's going on in people's homes. So yes, just everything is definitely a yes, and just please just see us as like human beings.
Thanks for uplifting that, Logan. And that line really hit me like, abolish the cop in you. Do it, y'all. Do it. It's important. And you may not even know that you've internalized those kinds of outlooks and perspectives. And we're here to tell you to do some examination of yourselves and do the work to support Black girls and gender expansive youth today. We're also, all the things that we're talking about goes back to adopting the Black Girl Bill of Rights that Joanne mentioned at the top of our program. It's a declaration of freedom and humanity, and it supports the cultural and narrative shift that's necessary for the safety and the health and prosperity of Black people in America. Black girls become Black women, and we are the heart of the progressive electorate. Government needs to invest resources, needs to invest policies, practices, strategies, and the leadership that no longer ignores the issues that we're all talking about today that are faced by Black girls and young women. I want to read out our Black Girl Bill of Rights, and I'm going to ask Umu, Logan, and Amma to help me out. Every Black girl deserves
the right to education and information about African and Black history.
The right to express our Blackness, however, we define it without judgment.
The right to be safe and have our physical, emotional, and mental health honored, protected, and nurtured.
The right to real sex education, contraception, tampons, and pads.
The right to agency and control over our own bodies in every space.
The right to justice and reparations in response to harm and sexual assault when police officers murder people of color.
The right to play and have fun.
The right to community, sisterhood, and support from other girls.
The right to be exactly who we are, free from stereotypes and insecurity, our full, unique selves.
Even in the face of the unsurmountable odds Black girls and young women face in America, we are making tremendous strides and contributions in this country.
Imagine what 2030 can look like if we invest 1 billion in Black girls and young women over the next 10 years.
And on that note, just want to say a very big thank you to Black Girls Freedom Week. Thank you for inviting us to come through to chat with y'all for a bit. We hope that this, maybe could spark new conversations. Maybe we introduced you to some concepts and themes that maybe you hadn't thought deeply about, and now you have time to explore. Please be sure to check out blackgirls2020.com for more information. And don't forget to follow Black Girl Freedom Fund, Girls for Gender Equity, and the National Black Girls Agenda on all of the socials, on Instagram. And if you just do a real quick search, you should be able to find us. And I'll pass it back to Damala.
Thank you so much. Definitely want to give Umu and Amma an opportunity to thank folks for tuning in. And we'll see you on the other side. Go for it, Amma.
Thank you all so much for watching. And thank you all for having me. This has been a great opportunity. I enjoyed so much being in discussion with Logan and Umu. Yes, I had an amazing time. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining and having me. Also, remember to invest in Black girls. Black girls become Black women, and Black women lead. So, yeah.
Oh, and abolish the inner cop in yourself. I love that, Logan. That's should be on the shirt.
I believe that was I think that's a quote by Tourmaline. But if you look up abolish the cop in your head or abolish the cop within yourself, you should be able to find the text that that's from. Thank you.